In a crowded bus stuck in heavy traffic, more people try to squeeze in at the bus station, ignoring the others yelling at them to stop pushing. When the bus reaches the university, some passengers get off, including Sungwoo, a tired student. He complains about how tough commuting to school is and wonders how he managed it during his first year. He starts thinking about moving closer to campus or even dropping out. Hanho, his friend, teases him, saying it's weak talk coming from a former Special Forces sergeant. Hanho jokes that maybe Sungwoo faked his military service, since someone who survived harsh training is now struggling with a 2-hour commute. Sungwoo fires back, telling Hanho to say that after he's been to the military himself, and asks when Hanho plans to stop postponing it. And Hanho jokes that Korea will unify before he enlists, but Sungwoo scoffs, asking how someone who doesn't even watch the news can say that. He then accuses Hanho of delaying his enlistment because of a girl named Myung, and Hanho quickly tells Sungwoo to drop the subject. Sungwoo reminds him how he warned him 3 years ago not to date anyone from campus. As they walk together, Sungwoo notices Hanho looking around nervously. Feeling bad, he asks if Hanho is about to cry, but instead, Hanho tells him to look at the sky. Sungwoo jokes, asking if the sky is making Hanho think of Myung, but Hanho points to the library building and insists there is text in the sky. Sungwoo thinks Hanho is messing with him and sarcastically says Hanho must have missed him. Hanho stays serious, claiming he saw a message that said downloading monsters, which vanished just before reaching 100%. Sungwoo smacks Hanho and accuses him of playing too many games, saying he can't tell the difference between dreams and reality. Sungwoo tells Hanho he must be imagining things because he drinks too much. Hanho tries to snap himself out of it and asks if they should grab some coffee since his mind feels foggy. Sungwoo refuses, reminding him they don't have time because the professor will be furious if they're late. Hanho jokes that Sungwoo will be fine thanks to his special forces training, but when Sungwoo gives him a sharp look, Hanho dashes off, saying they'll meet at lunch. Before leaving, Hanho insists he really saw writing in the sky, but Sungwoo tells him to stop talking nonsense. During the lecture, Sungwoo starts feeling sleepy and regrets not getting coffee with Hanho earlier. As he struggles to keep his eyes open, a system message suddenly appears in front of him, asking what is the best job to survive in a fallen world. Sungwoo stares in shock and rubs his eyes, thinking he must be imagining it. But before he can process what's happening, the lights go out, plunging the room into complete darkness. The students panic, confused as to why it's pitch black in the middle of the day. Someone says their phone won't turn on, and another notices a strange system message hovering in front of each student. They wonder if it's some kind of hologram or if they're all hallucinating. Sungwoo realizes everyone is seeing the same message. The system warns they have 15 seconds remaining, and skill cards with different star levels appear in front of them. Some students freak out, urging others not to touch the cards, fearing something bad might happen, but Sungwoo suspects doing nothing might be even more dangerous since they don't know what will happen when the timer runs out. As the countdown reaches 10 seconds, he quickly analyzes the cards, wondering how to choose. Suddenly, one card vanishes, and a sword materializes beside a student. Sungwoo guesses it must be linked to the 2-star warrior card that disappeared. Noticing a 5-star necromancer card, Sungwoo grabs it just before the timer hits 0. The system announces that the first job selection is complete and that those who didn't choose will have another chance later. The students are scared and confused, looking around nervously. One student with a sword explains he got it because he chose the warrior card. Meanwhile, Sungwoo wonders if he's really a necromancer since nothing seems to be happening yet. Suddenly, another student bursts into the room, crying for help, with a small goblin stabbing him in the shoulder. The student collapses, and the goblin keeps stabbing him until he dies. Afterward, the goblin turns its attention to the other students, who panic and run away, leaving Sungwoo standing at the front, feeling like the next target. Desperate, he calls out to Min-soo, the student with the sword, asking if he remembers him. But Min-soo, just as scared, nervously asks what Sungwoo expects him to do. Realizing Min-soo won't help, Sungwoo prepares to run as the goblin charges at him with its dagger. However, he remembers the student who was just killed and realizes that turning his back would only seal his fate. Determined, he grabs a chair and smashes it over the goblin's head, killing it. A system notification appears, informing him he earned 10 gold for defeating the goblin. While the other students stare at him in shock, Sungwoo focuses on the message, wondering what it means and if the world is now functioning like a game. Suddenly, the system tells him that the dead can become his followers under his authority. Curious, Sungwoo selects the goblin's skeleton from a command list. To his amazement, the goblin reanimates as a skeleton and kneels before him. Sungwoo realizes that the necromancer job he chose gives him the ability to summon the undead. 2 more goblins rush into the classroom, terrifying the students. The system informs Sungwoo that his undead is awaiting orders, so he commands the skeleton to attack. The skeleton stabs one goblin in the shoulder, but the wound isn't deep, and the goblin shoves it away. Both goblins then gang up on the skeleton, overwhelming it. Sungwoo realizes that if he doesn't step in, he'll have to fight the goblins himself. He notes that the goblins are only child-sized and not very strong, but still hard to handle without a proper weapon. He asks Min-soo for his sword, but Min-soo refuses, claiming it's his because he picked it. Annoyed, Sungwoo tells him to fight the goblins himself, but Min-soo is too scared. Frustrated, Sungwoo sarcastically suggests Min-soo use the sword to peel potatoes instead. Grabbing another chair, Sungwoo hurls it at the goblins attacking his skeleton. The hit knocks them back, giving the skeleton a chance to finish them off with its knife. Sungwoo earns 20 gold for defeating the goblins. As the skeleton approaches him, staring at him, Sungwoo feels awkward and tells it to look elsewhere. The skeleton obediently turns away, making Sungwoo wonder if it feels disappointed. A system message informs Sungwoo that the undead are fully under his control. Suddenly, the two dead goblins regenerate as skeletons, and the system notifies him that he's reached the maximum number of undead he can command. His classmates, shocked by what they've seen, ask him what's going on. Sungwoo admits he doesn't fully understand either. One student yells for help, saying she can't reach the police. The professor tries to calm her, suggesting that the same thing might be happening across the school. However, Sungwoo suspects it's not just the school but possibly the entire country. He opens the curtains, revealing fires raging throughout the city. This makes him wonder if the chaos is happening worldwide. Realizing they need to escape to survive, the students decide to leave the campus. One suggests heading to his car in the parking lot, but as they move into the hallway, more goblins appear. Sungwoo's skeletons hold them off, allowing the students to flee. While the skeletons fight, Sungwoo urges everyone to keep running. The students scatter in different directions, and although Sungwoo tries to stop them from splitting up, he eventually decides it's better to let them make their own choices. While running up the stairs, Hanho panics when he sees one of Sungwoo's skeletons and stabs it in the head. Sungwoo quickly steps in, explaining that the skeletons are like his bodyguards. Relieved, Hanho apologizes and Sungwoo asks if he chose an occupation card. Hanho says he picked up the thief's card. Frustrated, Sungwoo asks how many stars the card had. Hanho grins and says it had 1 star, asking if that's good. Sungwoo sarcastically tells him to believe it's great and says they need to focus on finding a safe place. He reassures Hanho that they'll be fine as long as they stay behind the skeletons. The system then notifies Sungwoo about a synergy list, granting them a bonus related to daggers. As Sungwoo studies the list, Hanho asks if he can see it too. Sungwoo says he can, while realizing that if 5 party members use similar equipment, they'll get a buff. This means better teamwork will give them stronger advantages, even for the skeletons. Sungwoo also figures that Hanho's thief abilities are decent since he gets the same buff, thanks to the skeletons, even if he's alone. As they continue down the stairs, they run into another pack of goblins led by a goblin chief. The system alerts Sungwoo that the goblins are weakened by a skill called Scent of Death, which lowers their stats by 30% when they face 4 or more skeletons. The skeletons attack the goblins and initially overpower them. However, the goblin chief raises his hand, creating a red ring around his arm. The system alerts Sungwoo that the goblins' 10 General Madness of the Wild skill has been activated, strengthening the goblins. With their new power, the goblins fight back fiercely and begin to overpower the skeletons. Hanho, panicking, asks if they should run away, but Sungwoo tells him to wait, reasoning that they need to figure out the goblins' strategy. He observes that the skeletons only act on his commands. While thinking of a plan, he notices the goblin chief holding up its hand and orders a skeleton to cut off the chief's arm. The skeleton succeeds, disabling the Madness of the Wild skill. With the goblins now weakened, the skeletons quickly finish them off. The goblin chief, enraged, tries to fight back but is soon defeated by the skeleton's coordinated attacks. Sungwoo earns 55 gold for killing the chief. From the chief's body, Sungwoo retrieves some items: a crude one-handed spear and the goblin chief's bracelet, which powers the Madness of the Wild skill. The system notifies him that his skeleton's attack speed has increased by 20%, and the Madness of the Wild buff will activate if he obtains goblin mercenary type units. Sungwoo, pleased with the loot, remarks that the chief's death was very rewarding. He praises one of the skeletons, which responds by rattling its bones creepily. Both Sungwoo and Hanho find it unsettling, and Sungwoo tells the skeleton not to do it again. Hanho then asks where they should go next. Sungwoo replies that they need to leave the campus. At the campus entrance, they encounter a group of survivors. Not wanting to scare them, Sungwoo orders his skeletons to hide in the copy room, reasoning that the survivors might attack them out of fear. Hanho agrees, admitting that he attacked the skeletons when he first saw them. As they join the other students, a male student tries to calm the group, explaining that they are contacting the police and the student council is already investigating the situation. A woman argues that they should just break open the door since there's nothing else they can do. The male student replies that they've already tried, but no matter what they do, it won't budge. He tells everyone to stay calm and quiet instead. Sungwoo recognizes the male student as Lee Jinseok, someone who is overly concerned with hierarchies and has a reputation for being controlling. Jinseok is also known for pestering girls on campus and apparently used his greed to secure a spot on the student council. As Sungwoo approaches the door, Jinseok shouts at him to stay away, calling it dangerous. Jinseok quickly apologizes, explaining that he's under a lot of stress because of everything happening. He admits he doesn't know what's going on but insists his responsibility is to protect the students. Sungwoo finds it ironic that Jinseok still clings to his sense of superiority even in this dire situation. Jinseok then asks if Sungwoo chose an occupation card. Sungwoo replies that both he and Hano picked one. Jinseok mentions that he's seen Hano at a few events but not often on campus, as Jinseok himself rarely has time to attend classes. Jinseok shifts the topic, saying that since they're in a dangerous situation, anyone with weapons should help protect the group. Sungwoo agrees. Spotting the spear Sungwoo is holding, Jinseok asks what occupation he picked, and assumes he must be a spearman, questioning if he's up to the task. When Sungwoo doesn't respond, Jinseok starts bragging about how he killed a goblin and how hard it is to defeat them, even with a weapon. He boasts that he picked a 2-star warrior shield card, which was a smart choice. Jinseok then says if anything happens, everyone should hide behind him, a statement that Hanho finds amusing. Suddenly, Minsu runs up, reporting faint goblin noises near the stairs. Jinseok orders the students to stay quiet and hide in the cafe while those with skills guard the entrance. However, Sungwoo signals to Hanho, and the two of them move closer to the main door. They both notice a system message that says the doors are sealed with strong magic power. The only way to open them is to defeat the boss monster within 2 hours and 11 minutes. If they fail, the monsters inside the building will become even stronger. Sungwoo is shocked and tries to open the door, but it doesn't budge. Hanho, clearly scared, points out that this feels like a time challenge and that if they don't kill the boss before the timer runs out, they might all die. Sungwoo agrees, saying he's not sure how the monster will get stronger, but one thing is clear, they have to defeat it to escape. He warns that they can't rely on anyone coming to save them. Jinseok approaches Minsu and asks if they know each other since they're the same age. Minsu hesitantly admits they do. Jinseok says that's great because it makes him feel safer to have them working under his authority. He suggests they stick together and watch each other's backs. Sungwoo questions if that's really the best approach, and Jinseok responds by asking if he has a problem with it. Sungwoo then asks if they've seen the system message on the door. Jinseok confirms they have and says they're waiting for a rescue team. Sungwoo asks if they really think the police will come to help or even notice them when the same chaos is happening all over the country. Jinseok, annoyed, asks if Sungwoo served in the military, and when Sungwoo says yes, Jinseok mocks him, saying the military is strong and will handle everything. Sungwoo calmly points out that Jinseok is unrealistic. There's no way the army can save everyone everywhere. He decides to stay calm, realizing they're all in trouble if he doesn't act. As Sungwoo walks past Jinseok with a sigh, Jinseok gets irritated and tells him to stay out of it and go back inside the cafe. Before anything else can happen, Minsu spots goblins approaching. 5 goblins appear, coming down the stairs. Sungwoo and Hanho move toward the stairs while the students in the cafe panic. Jinseok, who had been bragging moments ago, starts stuttering as he tells anyone with weapons to step forward. Meanwhile, Minsu notices Sungwoo's skeletons emerging from the hallway, but Sungwoo stops him, explaining that they aren't goblins. He then tells Jinseok that he respects his sense of responsibility, but warns that acting recklessly will get people killed. Jinseok, irritated, demands to know what Sungwoo's occupation is. Sungwoo turns to him, mana glowing from his eyes, and replies that it's something incredible. The system notifies Sungwoo that his skill Smell of Death has been activated, intimidating the goblins and reducing their stats by 30%. As the goblins try to retreat up the stairs, Sungwoo commands his skeletons to begin the hunt. The students hiding in the cafe watch the fight, stunned by what they see. Jinseok is also shocked and asks what the skeletons are. Meanwhile, Sungwoo's skeletons clash with the goblins while Sungwoo assists with his spear. Jinseok had planned to stay back and run if things got dangerous, but he is taken aback by how easily Sungwoo defeats the goblins. When 2 goblins try to escape, Sungwoo orders his skeletons to block the stairs. As they follow his command, he praises them, thinking that if people see he can control the skeletons, they'll trust him to handle the situation, and together they'll be able to defeat the boss. He remembers the rule they must beat the boss, and working as a team is the safest option. The system notifies him of special effects in play, and Sungwoo activates a bracelet to boost his skeleton's abilities. While the goblins are no longer a big threat, Sungwoo reflects that stronger monsters are bound to appear in the future. The students with weapons quietly discuss that Sungwoo is controlling the skeletons, while those still hiding feel relieved. One student asks which department Sungwoo is from, and another replies that he's their senior in the creative writing department. As the fight wraps up, one goblin is killed by a skeleton while the other tries to flee. Sungwoo throws his spear, hitting it in the back and finishing it off. The students cheer, praising Sungwoo for saving them, but he's more focused on searching for items. Sungwoo realizes normal monsters don't drop items. However, the system rewards him with a roulette ticket for killing 20 monsters, announcing that he's the 34th person to reach this milestone out of a possible 100. Curious about how to use the ticket, he notes he doesn't have an inventory. Turning back to his skeletons, he praises them again, and they respond with their usual strange rattling. At the entrance, Sungwoo taunts Jinseok, asking if he's been any help, which makes Jinseok furious. Back inside the cafe, Sungwoo tells the students they should have seen the message on the door. It won't open because of some kind of strange magic. A student nervously asks what they should do and if there's any way to escape. Sungwoo points to the message on the front door, explaining that somewhere in the building, there's a boss monster they need to defeat. The students glance around, scared, as Sungwoo reminds them that they have 2 hours left. If they fail to defeat the monster, he doesn't know what will happen, but it won't be good. One student hesitantly says he saw the boss on the rooftop where it killed their professor. With a destination in mind, Sungwoo prepares to head up and asks if anyone will join him. But the students avoid his gaze and no one steps forward. Sungwoo isn't surprised. It's clear no one wants to face a boss monster, and even if they had hope, it's still a dangerous task. Even Hanho asks to stay behind, but Sungwoo insists he comes along, saying he's needed to buff the skeletons. Hanho tries to hand Sungwoo a dagger instead, but Sungwoo declines, saying he doesn't need it. A female student then asks if fighting the boss will even be worth it. As Sungwoo and Hanho turn to her, she points out that taking everyone might just create chaos in the hallway. The student Yunjisu argues that the skeletons are more useful than any of them, so why bring the others? Sungwoo replies that they don't know how strong the boss is, so relying only on the skeletons is risky. He then asks Jinseok to come along, but Jinseok refuses, saying he should stay back to protect the students. Sungwoo shrugs and tells him to stay alert and protect them well. Sungwoo, Hanho, and Jisoo make their way to the rooftop, with the skeletons guarding them. Sungwoo warns Hanho to stay alert, and soon they encounter more goblins. Hanho spots the goblins first, and Sungwoo, along with his skeletons, takes on the ones in front. He tells Jisoo and Hanho to handle the rear. Jisoo quickly takes down 2 goblins attacking from behind and pressing Hanho, but he loses focus and nearly gets hit by another goblin. Luckily, one of Sungwoo's skeletons steps in and kills it just in time. When they reach the top floor, they find Professor Huang injured. Sungwoo asks what happened, and the professor, clearly distressed, says most of his students died because of him. He starts crying, blaming himself. Sungwoo tells him to calm down and explain. The professor shares that, thanks to Sungwoo, he and his students managed to escape to the research room. However, they couldn't stay there for long, so he followed the contingency plan and led them to the rooftop. But when they got there, they found an even worse monster. The students, who trusted him completely, were all killed. The professor coughs up blood and warns Sungwoo never to go to the rooftop before collapsing and dying. After the professor's death, Sungwoo receives an exclusive quest. It offers him a choice to take on the professor's vengeance by defeating the boss monster or to ignore it. The quest warns that his decision will shape his future. Sungwoo realizes this must be a critical turning point and feels frustrated about being forced into such a situation. Determined, he heads toward the rooftop. Hanho hesitantly asks if it's really okay to go there, but Sungwoo presses on. As they step onto the rooftop, the system announces that they have entered the boss monster's room. Here on the rooftop, chaos reigns as goblins loot the bodies of fallen students. The sight enrages Sungwoo, and Hanho spots one of his classmates' corpses being desecrated. Jisoo readies herself to attack, but Sungwoo stops her, urging everyone to stay calm and think. Frustrated, he wonders how they ended up in such a dire situation, then decides they must fight, getting stronger is their only option. The goblins notice them and immediately charge. Hanho, terrified, suggests running away, but Sungwoo refuses, saying they must endure. So he activates the Spirit of the Wild skill, boosting his skeleton stats. A fierce battle begins as the skeletons clash with the goblins. Sungwoo tells them to use the skeletons as shields while he and Jisoo join the fight. Hanho, watching from the side, feels useless and regrets choosing the thief card. He starts crying, thinking it's worthless, until he angrily throws a knife at a goblin, killing it instantly. Shocked, he remembers that knife throwing is his specialty. Encouraged, He joins the battle, throwing knives that take down goblins with precision, finally feeling like he has found his role. The remaining goblins, terrified by the scent of death, retreat to their leader, the goblin Centurion. Hearing his commanding roar, the goblins bow to him, regaining their morale and launching a renewed attack. But Sungwoo doesn't flinch. He leads the counterattack, declaring they'll take them all down. The battle intensifies as the goblins and skeletons clash violently. The goblin Centurion suddenly enters the fray, smashing through Sungwoo's skeletons with ease. Undeterred, Sungwoo summons more skeletons, using the goblins' corpses to reinforce his army. The newly summoned skeletons are quickly destroyed by the goblin Centurion. The system notifies Sungwoo that his mana is running low, making him realize there's a limit due to the large number of corpses in the area. Seonho throws 2 knives at the Centurion, but they barely scratch it and only make it angrier. The Centurion charges at Hanho, smashing 2 more skeletons along the way. One skeleton manages to land a hit, distracting the Centurion just long enough for Jisoo to slash it, causing a small wound. Sungwoo notices her precise and strategic sword movements and comments on her unusual skill. Inspired, he decides to calculate his next move carefully. The skeletons surround the goblin Centurion and Sungwoo commands them to attack from behind. The distraction works, and Sungwoo hurls his spear, grazing the Centurion's cheek. The Centurion roars in a fury, destroying more skeletons. Sungwoo is left with almost no mana. As the Centurion locks onto the last skeletons and prepares to attack, Sungwoo wonders if they can even defeat the monster with their dwindling resources. The Centurion continues its rampage, smashing everything in sight, and Sungwoo realizes they're at their limit. But he just needs one more chance. Spotting a sword stuck in the rubble, Sungwoo quickly forms a plan. They need a single decisive strike to bring the Centurion down for good. As the goblin Centurion continues to wreak havoc, Sungwoo grabs the sword and orders his remaining skeletons to attack. The Centurion smashes the 2 skeletons circling him, but the 3rd skeleton leaps at him with a sword. He deflects the attack, but the system notifies Sungwoo that due to his team play, the synergy effect is now active as he, Jisoo, in the skeleton now as the goblin Centurion keeps destroying everything. Sungwoo grabs the sword from the rubble and orders his remaining skeletons to attack. The Centurion smashes 2 skeletons, but a 3rd leaps at him with a sword. Though the Centurion deflects the attack, the system notifies Sungwoo that his teamwork has activated a synergy effect since he, Jisoo, and the skeleton are all using swords. The effect reduces sword weight by 50% and boosts attack speed by 10%. Sungwoo realizes this synergy could turn the tide. He launches an attack on the Centurion, with Jisoo and the skeleton following his lead. Their combined assault, enhanced by their speed, confuses the monster as they repeatedly slash it. Inho joins in, throwing a knife that hits the Centurion's arm. Sungwoo then orders his last skeleton to sacrifice itself to end the fight. As the skeleton charges, Sungwoo thanks it, acknowledging its bravery and contributions in battle. But in an unexpected twist, the skeleton delivers a single, devastating strike that beheads the Centurion. Sungwoo is stunned. The system announces that the Centurion's attack was blocked with an 88% probability by the one-armed warrior, and the team earns 255 gold for the victory. Sungwoo also levels up to level 3. Hano, amazed, asks how the skeleton pulled it off. Sungwoo admits he doesn't know, suspecting the synergy effect played a role. The system announces that the skeleton has absorbed the Centurion's magical power, transforming into a level 2 elite goblin with a commander attribute. Sungwoo notices a strange new tattoo on its forehead and jokingly asks how it got one without his permission. But thinking about its new commander traits, he wonders if this means it can lead groups like platoons, or even larger forces. This realization makes him decide that he needs to grow his army. Hanho announces that he's reached level 2, and Jisoo shares that she's now level 3. Sungwoo was about to say that he leveled up too, but random cards appear before them. Jisoo focuses, mentioning that during her last level up, she had to pick a card in a rush and asks which card would be best. Sungwoo explains that most of the cards are random, so she'll just have to rely on luck. Hano is surprised to see that everyone else can also view the cards. Sungwoo tells him to pick one of the 5 options. Sungwoo chooses a skill card again, and unlocks the ability to craft weapons from bones. This allows him to create swords, spears, clubs, or bows at the cost of 10 mana. He's surprised by the new ability, but the system notifies him that he's also received a unique reward for completing the quest to avenge his professor. His maximum number of subordinates has increased to 5, and the system adds that his fate has subtly changed. Though Sungwoo doesn't fully understand what that means, he decides to be more cautious with future decisions. Hano gains a thief hood that boosts his ability to hide from monsters by 50%. Sungwoo jokes that it's perfect for running away, but Hano confidently says he's done running and knows how to fight now. Jisoo receives an ignition stone. If she sharpens a knife with it, The blade might ignite when she's attacked. Sungwoo suggests they test their new skills later and leads the group back to the entrance. Meanwhile, at the entrance, Minsu nervously asks Jinseok if it's safe to stay there. Minsu explains that people are complaining, saying they should have followed Sungwoo to fight the boss monster. Some regret not listening to him. Jinseok, frustrated, storms into the cafe and yells at everyone to stop whining. He declares he's done risking his life to protect them. If you want to leave, go ahead, he shouts. When the group hesitates, he angrily adds, if you hate it here so much, head to the rooftop and get killed with Sungwoo. Jinseok snaps, asking if they think they have the right to talk when he's the one protecting them. A student speaks up, saying it's actually Sungwoo who's been protecting everyone. This makes Jinseok even angrier. He says he's been holding back his temper since high school, but they're pushing him too far. He curses at them and yells that if they think Sungwoo is their protector, they should head to the rooftop and die with him. The students fall silent, staring at him, and Jinseok demands to know why they're so quiet. Suddenly, Sungwoo speaks up, calmly asking who's been killed. Jinseok turns and freezes, seeing Sungwoo standing behind him with his skeletons. Fear washes over him as Sungwoo steps closer and asks if Jinseok was hoping for him to die. Sungwoo then places a hand on the entrance door and it swings open. Looking at Jinseok with disdain, he coldly says, "You're an eyesore."